5:30, so Wendy, let me know if you're ready for me to call the meeting over. Okay, well, I would like to call the regular board meeting, Santinez Community Service District, Wednesday, August 18th to order. August 18th, 2021, it's 5:30. So if we could start with a roll call from Wendy.
Director Redford,
Here.
Director Beard, absent. Director D'Ambra,
Here.
Director Jones,
Here,
and Director Van Pelt.
I don't see him, and I don't see anyone waiting to be admitted. Okay, so if we could go ahead and stand for the flag salute, and Director Redford lead us.
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to follow it all up. Go ahead.
Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
President, I'd like to please take a moment, director's comments, so that I can introduce our new employee.
Oh, hi.
So, Jeremy Chaya, please, if you want to give a few words, please.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you for having me here as an employee. It's been about 3 weeks now, and I'm enjoying it and getting to learn the facility. Little background, I worked at Laguna Sanitation for the County of Santa Barbara for about 20 years. Running for operator, chief plant operator there. So I bring a lot of experience and do a great job. So.
We're very happy to have you. We're excited to find somebody with your qualifications, and so we look forward to you starting.
Yeah, so I was wondering if anyone had any questions for me here.
Oh, we will.
At this time. I'm sure you're gonna have many down the road.
I'll have none for you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. I'm excited. So far, it's been fun. New learning. It's been fun.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
And Wendy, Director Van Pelt is here.
Oh, is he?
Yes. Can you hear us okay, Director Van Pelt?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good. Okay. We have just gone through the preliminary stuff and met our new employee. So now we will move on to director's comments. Do you have any comment that you would like to make, Director Van Pelt?
No, I'm okay. Thank you for asking.
Okay, and Director Redfern? D'Ambra?
I'll defer.
Okay, well, I have a couple of comments. First of all, I don't know, I think everyone here might be aware, but someone who attended our meetings somewhat regularly, and as recently as our last meeting, Fred Coble passed away. And it was very sad, and it's a loss on many levels, but I think that it's a loss for this district because of the time that I have been a board member here. He has come and given just really spot on comments and clarified some things. He had a wealth of experience. And, just his last remarks, he said that he hoped that we could be more efficient as a valley in treating wastewater. And he said he hoped to see that happen before he passed. And I'm not sure of the details. I know there was some kind of accident. He was working when it happened, and there was some sort of accident in a home improvement situation. But I just wanted to say something because I think that he was a valuable member of his community, and he added a lot in his public comments, and he will be missed by this board. The second thing that I wanted to mention in director's comments is I would like our finance committee, who is made up of Director D'Ambra and Director Beard, correct?
Yes,
I would like you guys maybe to have a meeting because sometimes we had some questions after our last meeting. We weren't sure of some things. So if you could work with Wendy and Director Beard, maybe that would be the appropriate place.
recap everything we've done and look at some of the things closer.
Yes, and we had some questions about some of the bills we were paying. And so it seems like would be appropriate for the finance committee to work as a committee to get those answers. So, yeah.
Wendy, we'll have Wendy contact you guys and set up a meeting for that. Schedule it.
Okay, and those are my comments. Don't know that, doesn't seem like any other directors have any at this time. So I would like to see if there are any public comments that anyone in the public who would like to address the board on matters that are not currently on the agenda. This is your opportunity to do that.
Questions about the project be later or now?
We will do that on the part, we're going to review that as part of the agenda, so that would be the appropriate time to do that. Yes, Ms. Ivy.
Well, I come tonight because I wanted to personally thank you. And without just rabble rousing all the time, there are the things in my life that I do. So everybody's been talking about my cookbook. So I brought it up. And I brought you one, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about it so that you can appreciate it a little bit more. All of the books are shrink wrapped for safekeeping, and none of yours were unwrapped until I unwrapped it and signed it. This started on my journey when I've been through breast cancer twice. And the first time was stage 4 that had already spread to all my lymph nodes. So my survival rate was not within the statistics. So I was taught how to cook with my mother without a cookbook, without a measuring spoon. We did everything by taste. And I started cooking when I had to stand in a chair in order to stir the pot from that small. So there was no recipes of anything that I'd ever done. So my daughters was extremely worried that I was going to die without documenting the family recipes. So I set out to do the family recipes, and it took me over 10 years to complete this. But it's what kept me going. What I had a project to complete. So it was the driving force behind my survival. But this cookbook is a legacy book for my daughters. It's an embossed hard copy cookbook down the spine with a protective cover. This is a picture in my backyard. The front page right here is when you top the pass and come into the San Ynez Valley. So this was a picture of my girls coming home. The last picture is from the mission in San Ynez that you would see when they left mom. Everything in here I tell you about. This book here also is hand sewn, so it will always lay flat. It won't bow on you. The paper is treated, so if you ever spill anything on it, you can just wipe it off. I start with a picture of my pumpkin rolls, which I do about 800 of them at Thanksgiving time. Then I tell the story about how all this come about. I dedicate it to my mom, talk about my life, my sisters, my best friend, then my nickname, how it all came about. And then I go into the recipes. Now, the first time we did a tasting on this, everyone in unison laid down their fork. They said, "My God, Mom, what is this?" This was in the testing to prove that all the recipes were the way they were supposed to be. So you take the recipe, you cook it up, and you see, is it the way it's supposed to be? Because we didn't have a recipe. So my husband says, "Well, your mother always adds an extra dash of this. She'll take the taste and then she'll add an extra dash." That's the name of the book. That Southern is a dash of me. So throughout this, I give you all of my recipes, and I end it in the back with my acknowledgments in my recipe for living. And the very last page right here was a picture of the doctor that saved my life. So throughout this book, there's stories, and you will pick up little hints that maybe something's not okay with me, that I'm not tasting right, or it's not right, or whatever. But I never go in to any of that in this book, because that's not what the book was about. But I tell you that so that you'll understand, and as you read this, you will know that something is going on. You just don't know what's going on, because there are stories, and there's many people that put this on their coffee table as a coffee table book, because it's far more than a cookbook. It's a journey of my life and how I survived. So I wanted to share that with you because, you know, I probably did. Karen, here's yours, and in here also is homemade jams and caramels and things that I do. This is me. This is what I do, besides just raise hell with you, you know.
Thank you very much.
Uh,
We normally do not accept gifts, but since
Well,
this is
I'm sorry.
consumable, under 25, I'm accepting.
For those people that are not here, I'll just leave them here. Now, Bob here is gonna get, he gets a little extra
Oh, he said he didn't want his to give it to me.
because Bob, during all of this COVID and Peg going down, Bob supported me. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Be real careful of the cord.
Yeah, he's the one, you know, my business was closed and my website is down. But just like with this sewer project, this phoenix will rise again. Frank, thanks for being a part of it. Appreciate it. I don't know if I've seen you all the time here, but I know you're involved, so thank you very much. Jose?
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you. This was the best thing you guys have ever done, to hire this. Now, over here is, I got one Jose for Craig. Okay. Through all of this, you guys haven't been around. All you guys are new. But this little lady right here has been right with me this whole thing. Thanks, Wendy. For having it.
Thanks for doing it and providing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So that's my spiel. That's what I wanted to do. And you guys make sure that David and them get theirs, but I didn't discriminate against anybody except Bob. I had to give him a little extra because he really came through for me when things were tight. So I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Well, I know what the extra was, extra caramel. thank you very much. We will treasure these. Thank you. Yes,
I
Gary.
must say, we've had some things from her, but we're in competition on the camera. I make mine.
Oh, I think that's a challenge, huh?
Yeah.
We'll trade.
Director Van Pelt, yours will be saved in Jose's office for you.
Might be a few things.
Thank you. I look forward to receiving it, and I appreciate that very much.
Director Van Pelt said, thank you, appreciates it. So anyway, well, now we have to go to something not as fun. The consent agenda.
We're not adjourning.
Huh? Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I skipped over the manager's report. Manager's report first and then legal counsel and secretary. So our manager, who I agree, that is the best thing that we've done, was hire Jose Acosta. Time for him to give his reports.
Appreciate that. I didn't provide a written report this month. It was too late. Wendy got on me about that, so I apologize if there isn't one. I'll make sure it's in there from now on. A few other things going on this past month. As Jeremy mentioned, he's newly hired. We got him acquainted. We got him accustomed to what's going on out there. And I will say this about Jeremy, he's taking off on the ground and running. I trust that his knowledge and skill set is going to be able to make that plant run more efficiently and do some upgrades out there. So we've already started that. We're managing the time that we spend out there, and with him there, we probably will be able to operate with less manpower from the district, which will allow us to focus on other areas of the district as well. We've been in communication with legal counsel and Mr. Tuckfield, who's here this evening as well, who will speak later regarding the capacity fee. Wendy and myself, we've been in discussion regarding the Horizon capacity charges, which I'll discuss a little bit later when we get to the Horizon updates on where we are with that. At the casino, one thing that they're working on out there at the wastewater treatment plant is to increase their capacity of the recycled water. So Jeremy's working on trying to increase their capacity because they're using quite a bit of that recycled water on this construction work that they're doing out there. So that's one project that's going on out there at the plant. One thing that we were able to accidentally review and visit was our policies and procedures on power outages, because we had a power outage last week, I believe it was. And so we were able to visit, where our generator's kicking on, was everything working properly? So we're going to enhance and work on updating our procedures and policies on power outages and such. And we're going to coordinate and schedule a tabletop exercise. That way we can actually shut off power and, make sure we operate when that happens. Because the worst time you want to find out that it doesn't work is when it happens and you're not equipped. I've been talking to Matt Vanderlinden down at the city of Solvang, Public Works Director, and just wanted to provide a construction status update. The aeration system out at the plant for tank number 3 is nearly complete. The mixing system and new blowers are installed at the wastewater treatment plant, and they're still waiting for the fine bubbler diffusers out at the plant for this aeration process. They're looking at completing the work on the tank within the next couple of weeks on tank number 3. There's 3 tanks out there, and they're approximately 2 weeks ahead of schedule than where they were. And that project was going to take about 18 months to complete out at the wastewater treatment plant. So those are some of the things that have happened this last month. I just want to make sure the board's aware of. If you guys have any questions of me, I'll gladly answer them right now.
I do have one comment. I believe that it was 3 years ago that we had our meeting out at the Solvang plant. And we were so excited to be getting that put in the aeration system. And I'm glad it's almost done, but I really naively thought it would happen a lot faster. Remember how excited we were? But 3 years, now it's actually done, so yay.
Yes, it's a huge
Almost done, yes.
That was the complete thing or just the first phase? I think I looked at the check and it said for phase 1. So this is an ongoing upgrade or
Yes.
is this,
So the aeration upgrades is phase 1 of the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. So phase 2 and 3, they're looking at approving and discussing further on how they're going to approach that. This is phase 1. And so I believe they still probably have about another 14 months to go before it's going to be complete. But they are moving ahead of schedule, and looks like they're satisfied with what's happening. We've gotten some pictures on the progress. We've been out to the plant. Staff has been out there to view the work as well. So they're moving along out there.
And we have already paid for that.
No, we have not.
Okay.
We're making progress payments as they get billed as well through Cushman Construction, who's their contractor doing the work. So as they receive an invoice, we'll receive our portion of the invoice. There is a check in there for 2 months worth of invoicing. They closed out their June 30th, and then we received July as well with that. So
Okay, now we're expecting, Solvang is expecting, and we should benefit as well, that this will be a huge savings in the amount of electricity that
Yes.
is used.
the aeration process and blowers that they're going to be using are going to be more electric friendly. So they'll be using a lot less electricity. There's still be a cost savings with that.
Okay, well, very good, good news. So now we can move on to the legal counsel report. Mr. Battles.
Okay, thank you. I believe the district is a member of the California Association of Sanitation Agencies, CASA. They have 3 conferences a year, and they've been meeting remotely at the conferences. They've either been skipping the conferences or having remote conferences up until last week, where they had one in San Diego. One of the components of the conference is an attorneys committee meeting, and there'll be usually maybe 40 attorneys that attend those meetings. It's all attorneys that represent wastewater agencies. I always try to attend those. I couldn't make this last one because I had a scheduling conflict, but I did get the agenda packet. And most of the focus this time around was on water quality and somewhat high-level complicated regulatory issues and related litigation. A couple of items from the agenda to mention. One is this legislation that is still pending and working its way through the system dealing with disposable wipes. And I don't know whether this has really crossed your radar, but apparently there's a problem with disposable wipes clogging sewer pipes. And so there's an effort to regulate disposable wipes. And the real focus of that is on labeling, where the legislation will require very bold labeling saying these wipes are not flushable. I guess maybe that's the term they often use, is flushable wipes. And so if they're made of certain components and they meet certain tests, you need to have, the manufacturer needs to put very conspicuous labeling saying this is not intended to go down the drain. And one thing I noticed in the most recent version of this legislation, it was just amended again on July 1, I guess was the last amendment. The penalties for violations are $2,500 per day up to a maximum of $100,000 per violation. And you can have 1 violation per day for each day that you're selling a product in the state. So the legislation has some real teeth, and to the extent that the district has a problem with flushable wipes or wipes that should not be flushed, this legislation will probably be of some help. That was one item to mention. There's also an opinion issued by the Fair Political Practices Commission, and this deals with campaign-related expenditures and attempting to influence the outcome of either an election or some measure that's on the ballot. And what this opinion basically holds is that if you're sending out information in the form, they give a list of things like bumper stickers, billboards, door-to-door canvassing, other mass media advertising, television, electronic media, radio, those kinds of things. If it's a campaign materials, and there's a reporting requirement, and to the extent that there's an expenditure of public funds on it, it might be prohibited. But what this opinion does is clarify that bumper stickers and other types of communications you might use, and that might be radio spots or other types of advertising or door canvassing. If you had door hangers, they're not per se prohibited, and they're not necessarily campaign materials, even though they're listed under the regulation as examples of campaign materials. It has to also have an intent to influence or advocate a particular outcome in an election in order to be prohibited. I think the regulation wasn't very clear prior to this opinion and would appear to prohibit all those types of communications, even if they weren't campaign related. So this is just a helpful opinion that makes it clear that you can communicate with your constituents through a number of different means without it being treated as a campaign expenditure, so long as you're not trying to urge them to vote one way or another. So those are the two items that I wanted to mention from that attorney's meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Battles. Now we will go on to the Secretary Treasurer report. Wendy Berry.
Okay, I have a few things. We're in full force with the audit and everything's going well with that. We're implementing the new software. And if you guys are interested in direct deposit, we can do direct deposit. So I have a form for you to fill out if you like to participate. That's it.
Okay,
Very simple.
anything else? Okay, now we can move on to the consent agenda. Everyone has had an opportunity to see this in their packet. But I would like to ask if there are any changes or questions. The only question that I had on the checks that we signed, I think that the question was answered. The $185 to the medical clinic was for our new employee or was, okay,
Yes, it was for the physical.
okay, very good, thank you. Anything else? Then I will ask if there is a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll motion to approve.
Director Redfern makes a motion to approve the consent agenda,
I'll second the motion.
seconded by Director Deambra. Wendy?
Great. We have a motion by Director Redfern and a second by Director Deambra to approve the consent agenda as presented. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redfern,
Aye.
Director Deambra,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Van Pelt,
Aye.
and Director Beard has not logged on yet.
I don't think so. I don't see him.
He said he might.
He said he was hoping to log on between 6 and 6:15.
You still got 15 minutes?
So the motion passes.
Okay, then let us move on to the action items. 8A is approval of resolution number 21-10, and I will have our general manager take that.
Okay, so what we're doing is we're bringing back the resolution for the CEQA for the capacity fee increases that were presented. A couple months ago, we had discussion. Last month, we had more discussion, and the board had questions regarding the capacity fee study. So we invited Mr. Clayton Tuckfield here to answer those questions, provide more insight on his methodology of compiling the study and any other questions that the board may have. So at this time, I will turn it over to the board. So if you have your questions, you could present to Mr. Tuckfield. Clayton, are you still on there?
Yes.
I'm here.
Okay. So I'll turn it over to the board so that they can ask their questions that they have at this time.
Mr. Clayton, I have a question. It's real basic. Why do we need to raise the capacity fees specifically?
Well, the cost change over time. So it's in this particular case, let's say you went back to the original system and you have excess capacity remaining, you can sell that to customers. And so if you sold it in the dollars in that day, you would be recovering those dollars. But now those customers who paid into the system, they're now each year losing out on inflation. And so we increase the charges to compensate for that. So that by increasing the value of the system to today's dollars, then they ultimately recoup their original investment, accounting for that inflation.
How do they recoup their investment? How is that done?
For example, the district has a list of fixed assets. It's accounting records showing the original cost of an item. And we trend that original cost to today's value based on the ENR index, an engineering news record construction cost index. And so it's a published index. which represents how costs have changed since the original installation of an asset. So we trend that up to today's dollars. We get a replacement cost, account for depreciation that's occurred based in proportion to how it was on the books of this last year. And that's how we get a replacement cost less depreciation.
Well, my other concern is if we're charging them more for basically the same thing because the cost of doing business, et cetera, is up there. Why is it necessary to do that? Why can't we keep it steady until such time as we actually need or we foresee a negative cost that we need to replenish? It seems to me this is kind of a never-ending battle of it going up for people, and the whole thing we're trying to do is to keep this as cost-effective as possible. And this is just, oh, go ahead.
I understand that, but if you view that the original system was built to serve, let's just say 100 people, but you had the capacity, extra capacity in that system to serve 200 people, the 100 people upfronted the money to pay for that extra 100 customers. So each year that goes by, you don't collect the money to pay those customers back who invested in the original system. They're losing out on that money. So it's not fair to do that. You want to compensate for that inflation that's occurred such that they are compensated in the money they put up front. So you're recovering dollars to pay for the system that was paid for by the customers at that time. I hope I'm making sense, but
yeah, it does. But if you have a price increase on a product, on an extension, on a repair, still the original 100, as you mentioned, they're still paying, are they not? I mean, what you're saying basically is to recoup some of the original investment to the original shareholders, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. What about where are they getting the money back? I mean, are we replenishing them, or are we just keeping the money in reserves to keep that cost low?
Well, that's where you get into technical issues. For example, if you viewed that the original people who paid the money to build the system are owners of the system, they get recouped by the new customer contributing this capacity charge that goes into the district's funds. That helps to pay for replacement of infrastructure that they would have had to pay for. So you're essentially paying it down. Does that make sense? Like your capital program. You got a capital program with all these new items that need to be constructed to improve the system or replace assets. You're collecting a capacity charge, which goes against that. So your existing customers don't pay as much. So they've recovered their investment.
And so basically you go on an engineering survey on what the cost of construction and the product is, as opposed to like a CPI? For your rate of increase, is that accurate?
Well, I see that you get into trouble with that. So we're taking the original cost of the asset, increasing it based on how the engineering news record cost, construction cost index has increased.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to be clear, no money gets returned to the original buyers that bought into the system. It's returned to us.
It prevents it from going up.
Right.
It reduces the amount it goes up by an increment. Yeah, I understand that.
I just wanted to be clear, just in case somebody thought some 100 people were getting a lot of money. They're not.
Well, I have a question for Director Redfern, because I think you'd know this. I'm one of those original customers. We got our sewer in I think it was 82, could be off a year. And I believe that I think it was called a connection fee and not a capacity fee then. And I believe it was $2,500.
Something like that.
I mean, that's just what I remember. And my question to you is, how many houses during that original hookup, the original capacity, we're not talking about 100, or were we talking about 500 houses? How many? Because our town has.
What I remember was that Ron had to have 300 houses, and he was shy by just a couple homes.
I think he had 271.
Yeah. anyway, so he cut some pretty good deals for the last few of them, which was not legal probably and wasn't legal then, but he did.
Ethical.
And it ethical, but he got it through and got the sewer. Hooked by, but anyways, I know that we were supposed to take care of a lift station on Edison for a family forever. And there was paperwork for that. I watched Bobby shred that paperwork and the homeowner lost his copy. End of problem. Anyways, but he did make some nice deals like that.
My whole question is because I'm trying to understand, and I really appreciate, we're not trying to put you on the hot seat, but I'm trying to understand how come the amount keeps getting, it gets more and more expensive in a way that it's kind of
Inflation's
mind-blowing.
going up. It's the original cost, but with the original cost with inflation. That's what they're figuring out.
Right, and we're having to maintain our pipes. I don't know how much we've had to replace. I just want to be really sure that we're just not doing it the way everybody does it, because that's the way it's done.
Typically, sir, what's the average increase per year? Couple, 2-3%, something like that, or does it vary?
It does vary, but it roughly follows inflation. So 2 to 3%, sometimes a little bit higher than that, but on average, just below 3%.
Is there any other thing that would be the proverbial wrench in the machinery that could happen that would cause that to require substantial increase?
Yes, if you had to do a major replacement of some sort, you had a sewer line that was very expensive to replace that benefits everyone in the district, then that cost would be substantial and your fixed asset value would increase. And then anybody who connected would then pay that much higher price.
Well, let me ask you, let's take Verizon, for example. The main line would be 246, which everybody I would think would contribute to. But how about an individual street? Would that be the responsibility of everybody, or would that be to the specific area of concern?
The district's policy, at least I've heard the last few times I've attended, is that any expansion project is going to be directly paid for by those customers that directly benefit from it. So with Horizon, you've identified 23, I think, properties that will be paying for that. That means all the other customers will not be paying for that. So any expansion like the Horizon line, which benefits just a group of people, you're going to charge them for that line in addition to using the existing system. So that's why the charges are set up the way they're set up.
My question was specific incident on Horizon that took those 21 homes there. If they had an issue, would that be disseminated the cost throughout the whole district or just that specific area? How would you pencil that one in?
I think what you're saying is if the sewer line had a problem and needed some capital work spent on it, is that what you're saying?
Yes, on a specific street.
Yeah.
As opposed to the main line.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. The most likely that would be considered an overall system-wide type cost. You would not go back to those customers and say you got to pony up more money for that.
Okay, you painted me a good picture. Thank you.
One thing we have is a lot of clay pipe in our system still, I believe.
Yeah.
And say you had an earthquake, there you could be looking at the potential of a lot of damage and a lot of repairs. And that would definitely change numbers for us.
I have a few questions
Yes, Director Van Pelt.
to Mr. Tuckfield about some of the infrastructure. Isn't that why we carry insurance is for some catastrophic event that would allow us to claim an insurance policy or charge against some of this breakdown in infrastructure?
I think that would be more of a legal question, but I believe the insurance is intended to cover those catastrophic events. But to the event that it doesn't cover the entire amount of those costs, you would still have to be out of pocket that money.
Okay, and I think I don't really know what we, I guess, carry, but it'd be interesting to know because I think the questions that I came up with last board meeting were more around the methodologies. And I know that there's, reviewing some of the material, that there's 3 different methodologies that can be used: the system buy-in, the incremental cost, and a combination of the buy-in and incremental cost. And I think the question that I started mulling in my head is if we use the system buy-in, right, which really deals with the replacement cost, it seems to be in the area we live in, replacement costs have generally increased. I want to say year over year, but I would say, consistently over time. Would that be correct in that comment that I believe I just made, is that our replacement costs are quite high by the nature of where we live?
I can't really answer that. The ENR construction cost index is a more or less a national index. Now, while there are local indexes, like for example, Los Angeles, it doesn't go back as far as we need it to go back. So you'd have a kind of a combination of 2 indexes, which we typically don't do. So I realize in certain areas of the country, costs go up faster than they do in other places, but you can get into a whole bunch of issues with what index to use and how it was put together and those kind of things. So we typically look at the national index, and I think that's kind of an industry way of doing it.
Okay. And that makes sense. I guess my next question naturally is, did we run maybe a comparison with the different methodologies, the incremental costs and the combination of the buy and incremental cost? Or did we just choose, or did yourself just choose a system buy-in methodology through experience and practicality reasons?
In this particular case, I didn't need to look at the other methodologies because the district's policy is that any increment is going to be paid by whoever is causing that increment. So like the horizon line, that's not included in this because it's going to be directly on the 23 properties. So that essentially by default, you've taken all of the expansion stuff and put it on property. And so the only thing that's left is the replacement cost of the existing system.
Of the insurance. I'm not sure what we carry, but I would think that if we were going to be out of pocket, if an infrastructure had a failure, but if we carried insurance, then, which I assume we do, then I think that we would have to look more closely at the replacement costs, because it seems like we're protecting ourselves with the insurance policies, but we're also charging new customers for replacement costs that we carry insurance on. So I'd love to dig in deeper there to understand, because as some of the other directors have echoed, we're under immense pressure to try to stabilize costs, and I think our constituents are looking to us to make sound approvals. And I have a hard time with, I think the board too is accepting continual increases on it, and virtually everything we do, from costs to contracts and the such. So I appreciate your time, and I think to the other board members, I think we would be interesting for myself to look at what insurance we carry and the amounts, and get a little better dive in there to understand where we're maybe liable and where we're protected.
Is that a question that our general manager or secretary could answer now?
I believe we do carry insurance. Like Clayton says, probably a legal question more than, but I believe the insurance would cover catastrophic events that happen by accident. If you had a normal replacement of a piece of equipment, that's what the capacity fees are for. So, and if I'm misspeaking, Rick, can you please correct me?
No, I think that's generally correct. Insurance does cover some events, but it's things, if you have earthquake insurance, it's things like flood, or somebody drove a truck into a district facility and damaged it. Insurance would cover that, but insurance doesn't cover repair and replacement when things wear out. It's like your car, you've got car insurance. If you get in an accident, your insurance will cover that. But if your engine blows a head gasket or transmission goes out, you have to pay for that. And so I think the district's fee structures structure focuses on things like a head gasket and a bad transmission, things that have to be replaced, things that wear out, and then insurances are for the unexpected types of casualty items that, you know, can happen, but probably don't happen a lot when you've got buried sewer lines. I was also going to mention, or maybe, and correct me here, Clayton, if I'm wrong, but when you were talking about costs going up over time and attributing that to inflation, I understand that's true. Isn't it also the case, though, that costs have gone up because there have been additions to the district's system, capital improvements? And I'm wondering if included in the overall capital costs that new customers have to pay for is the district's office building. Is that on the list of assets that gets included in what has to get covered?
Yes, you are correct. As over time, since the original system, the district has either had to spend dollars to maybe repair and replace things that cost more than they did in the original system. So that gets included in this. The district building also did get included. It's on the district's list of fixed assets. And so you have to take into account the year in which it was installed. So you have the original system back in the 80s. Maybe the district building was in the 90s or late 90s. So the increase in the cost isn't as great as it is the farther you go back, because the original ENR index number is a lot less than it is for more recent. So, but you're correct. It does include those items.
So I think that was helpful for me to understand that part of the explanation for the big cost increase is that the district has been spending money on new assets that nobody has paid for other than the district. And so it's new customers that are buying in to a portion of the district system that have to pay for the additional assets that have been constructed that previously weren't covered by capacity fees.
Yeah, that's correct. And also, you know, the older the system get, the facilities are retired, they're fully depreciated, or they need to be replaced simply because of age and condition. So when you make those replacements, the dollars are much higher than they would be if they 20 years or 30 years ago.
I would ask if the general public, if anyone in the public has any questions before we move on, any public comment on this. Yes, Gary.
We're talking about a one-time fee. You called it a connection fee, but now it's called expense.
Correct.
So if you raise it next year, I don't have to pay any of it anymore.
That's right.
Correct.
And we made a point to not accept them because, and you're still paying a lot. So what you're being asked to pay is significant.
I have a question for the board. Mr. Van Pelt to kind of open this up. Insurance. I don't know anything. First of all, most insurance doesn't cover what they call acts of God, which are nuclear holocaust, flooding, earthquakes. I don't know anything that could cost us more and is a real threat than an earthquake. So could we look into the cost of getting earthquake insurance if in fact it's not already covered? I think we're just to look at it. And then, you know, if it's doable, that's something we'd have to decide, but I don't know anything that could be more dangerous cost-wise than that.
So definitely we'll review our policy, see what is covered, and earthquake is not covered, then we'll review that. That is one of the greatest fears working in the utility sector for water and wastewater. So I do believe we will look into seeing the cost of that and seeing what the current policy covers. So.
Very good. Thank you for raising that, Director Van Pelt. That was helpful. And Mr. Tuckfield, we very much appreciate you being here tonight. And we didn't mean to put you on the hot seat, but just this never-ending cycle of raising money or fees on our constituents is a problem. So I appreciate you coming in and explaining. Is there anything else before?
So at this time, if the board has no further questions, there's no further questions to the public, the board will have to make the recommendation to adopt the resolution, setting forth findings, approving preliminary environmental review form, and authorizing filing notice of exemption relating to capacity fee increases. And the board must determine the effective date of the new capacity charges. And the reason why that's in there is the board has said that we want to delay the increase in the capacity fees to allow the Drive residents who are connecting immediately to not have to pay this increase. So that's what we have to do this evening. Do we want to pick a date? Let's
Pick a
start
date.
there.
When is the project supposed to finish?
The project should be completed no later than December 5th.
So
January 1st of
Well, not January 1st. I was thinking maybe the end of January,
end of January
February 1st.
next year.
And how does that work with taxes and all that stuff? Okay.
I was thinking even a little further, like,
How much further can we go till it interferes with your taxes?
June 30th.
I kind of like that because it also incentivizes people who haven't bought in.
Well, I mean, February or March, I think that gives them a window to get in on it. But we don't want to make it a 6-month window. I don't think. I think 3 months is plenty. Do you think we need 6 months?
Well, I like raising the cost at
Because
the,
it's holding back the whole district.
in what way?
In that it's not giving an increase for anybody else that might come on, say a lot on Edison opens up, the one that's just up from Katy. They want to connect. It keeps the increase, it's giving them a bonus too in a way.
Right, I like all of our customers to get the
Well,
best
make it
deal.
6 months.
I mean, that's all I'm thinking,
But
I understand what you're saying, but.
Well, you
I'm
say
open.
6, why don't you split it down the middle, go 45 days?
that's
March
45 days. We're going for 3 months or 6 months.
Okay, well then, what's the middle of that? 45 days, right? Or 45 days?
45 days, it's a month and a half, it's 45
Okay,
days.
Mike's, right down the middle, between 3 and 6, 4.5
4.5 months.
months,
There we
okay?
go.
Would you be happy? Would you be happy if, you know?
I'm happy with 6 months, actually. I'm just,
Yeah, I'm happy also. I just, because I hate for people to have to pay so much money for something. And like I said, some of us got in at such an inexpensive cost, but I guess if you can afford to build a house in Santa Ynez, maybe you should be able to afford that. But I don't like to think that way. But, so whatever, I'll go with the vote. Director Van Pelt, do you have a feeling one way or another about it?
I don't. I tend to agree with the board that we want to encourage people, to buy in early, and we can incentivize them by allowing them to do so in a relatively short period of time. I'm in agreement. I will state though that it's as you've been echoing, Director Jones, that it's hard for us to I think accept this rate increase, but we know it's likely necessary for us to protect ourselves and protect the people that have bought in. So that being said, I'll go along with the board's recommendation.
well, just the people from Horizon actually just thinking about it. They didn't just buy here and they didn't just build here. They
Right.
built here 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So,
Well, they're getting it at the current rate no matter what,
right.
but I'm
But
just,
it gives them more time to get in.
Yeah,
So let's do 6 months.
Miss Ivy.
You know, Horizon Drive has waited a long time. And I think everybody needs to take stock of what the economy is right now. A lot of the people have lost their jobs and businesses are closed. And that's affecting the decisions that they make about having to pay and buy in. So, you know, if you can give them a little leeway or a little bit more time, I think that's the right thing to do, you know. I also believe that if you got a window for people to get into, then that makes them, you know, hurry up and get in and do that. And a lot of people want to do it, but at the same time, they're crying that they can't do it at this time. You know what I mean? So it's life circumstances that we also have to take in consideration. And it's the whole country and the whole community. It's not just Horizon Drive or Santa Ynez. It also is everywhere. about the economy and what's happened with the businesses being closed and everything, and inflation and everything. So I just would ask you to consider whatever kind of leeway you could give the people. I think that would be a good thing to do. I think it would be a neighborly thing to do.
And Wendy, you said that you would need to have it go in effect by June 30th. Is there a reason I mean, there's not.
June 30th, sounds good to me.
June 30th, 2022, we just bought a little time.
I don't have a
So,
problem.
Well,
okay, so this,
if the ordinance doesn't go into effect until June 30th, and you're gonna have people coming in and applying just under the wire, then I don't know that we'd have time for those people that are going to be using the installment payment policy and having all of those capacity fees and other related costs and expenses collected on the tax roll. There is a process for notice and hearing and going through all those steps under the installment payment policy. We've only done that a couple of times, so I can't tell you off the top of my head how many months that takes, but it does take some time.
It takes 2 months,
About 2 months.
yeah.
So
And
that-
they can't
would
get
that-
on if they can't get on the tax roll, then we make them pay a year up front.
Okay,
But if they were to come in June 30th and want the installment payment plan, then technically they would only have to pay 1/2, because we could do a change order with the county to put it on the tax roll for April.
okay, yeah, it's nice that we have that kind of flexibility. And that's just something else to keep in mind when you're making a decision regarding how long you want to delay the effective date. People that use the installment payment plan don't have to come up with all that money right off the bat. They can enter into the installment payment plan and pay it over 20 years.
but their payments will be a little lower if they're getting in at a slightly lower rate.
Yeah, they'd still want to get in at the lower rate.
Yes, Gary.
So my question is, if you decide that June 30th is the cutoff, does that mean I have until June 30th at 5 p.m., 4 p.m. to come in and say, I want to hook up and pay the old fee? And it would still take 2 months before everything gets settled.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm in before June 30th at 4 p.m.
That's what we're talking about, but you raised the point, would it disincentivize people on Horizon Drive? Would most people on Horizon Drive take advantage of the extra 10 months?
If I can, Wendy and I have talked about this a little bit, and I don't think it's clear under our existing procedures. Is it the case that if a customer submits an application by June 30th, they get the lower connection fee, given the fact that they're not going to pay any connection fee for a couple of months until the installment payment plan gets processed? Or do they have to post some money up front in order to lock in the fee? We don't have anything in our ordinances or policies that address that issue, because this is a new thing. I think the board, I think that's something for the board to decide. What is going to be the trigger for entitling somebody to the current capacity fee, given the fact that they're not actually going to pay the capacity fee at all in one lump sum in many cases, but they're going to pay it over time? At what point do they need to be committed to go forward in order to get the benefit of the current lower capacity fee?
I understood Wendy to say that if they came in at the end of June, that they would have to make an actual payment then when they signed on.
Yeah, because by the time we get finalized with the 2-month process, we've missed the deadline for a change in December. So they would have to pay at least 1/2 of their payment up front. So then we could do a change order possibly by April and have their second half of the property tax go up by that payment.
But when we talk about them paying it up front, they wouldn't pay anything until the final installment payment agreement was entered into with the district, and the board had adopted its resolutions and held its hearings.
Correct.
it's at the end of that process that they make their first payment in advance.
Right,
And that may be well after June 30th. So
Yeah.
if they submit an application by June 30th, would that be enough to lock them into the lower current fee? I guess that's the question.
Well, a solution off the top of my head would be to make it April 30th. And then that's a pretty happy compromise. It gives people plenty of time. But without all the special two-step stuff.
I
It
was
will be
thinking
done.
the same thing.
April 30th will get it onto the tax roll.
yeah, the new tax roll spreadsheets aren't due until July 27th.
We would have 2 meetings to
Yeah.
approve the
Okay.
hookup.
And it takes 2 meetings.
So we'd have our May and June meetings. Yes, Ms. Ivy.
This is only going to apply to those on Horizon Drive that has not committed. I mean, all of us that's committed.
Everyone, you're committed, you're at our current rate. That's not gonna be an issue for any Horizon Drive people that hook up now.
Before April 30th.
Yeah, before April 30th, but it's also true, I see a house being built in my neighborhood, Director
So
Redford
we're
mentioned a lot.
okay.
Yes, but it just gives a little more time to people, a few more months.
But we're still carrying all the fees for this extension. So we don't want to be giving too much time. We're still carrying interest and the cost and trying to give them a great deal. So I think April's good too.
It sounds like a compromise and, you know, we don't know what tomorrow will bring. I hope that things are better by April of next year. Yes.
So if you say April 30th, and then you have May and June to work it, approve it, do I have to be here at those meetings if I sign up before April 30th?
Yes.
It's best, yes. Because then at the second meeting, you have to, the first application process is, you say you want to come in and connect, we go over all the different costs and the different terms, we look up the prime rate, and then we take that installment payment agreement to the board, and then the board approves it, and then we go through the final process where we have to advertise in the paper, we have to have a public hearing in the paper. And then we have to finalize all the costs because, you know, if you have to pay a month up front or a year up front, then we have to deduct that off the whole price. And so it's best that you be there in case the board has a question. And then you can answer it.
You take a Zoom call from Spain?
Yes?
For example, Mr. Waples, if you decide you're gonna connect in December, then your application will start then. So your 2 months will be January, February.
Yeah. But I'm thinking.
You're thinking the April date.
I'm thinking if COVID is fine, I'm gonna be in Spain.
Zoom in.
Yeah, well, I won't even be able to do that. So that's what I'm asking.
So when is the final cost going to be then?
The final opportunity based off what board has discussed would be April 30th for you to, well, final
I mean, the
cost.
total cost won't know until April?
No, we should know the final cost by the time the project's completed. As I'll discuss in my Horizon Drive project updates, is what we're planning to do is bring back to the board the capacity fee study that we've been doing with Mr. Tuckville at the September board meeting. That still will not be final, but it should have most of the costs that are associated with the project based off of where we are at that time. So
Oh,
we should be able
so
to get,
I don't write you a check tomorrow, I wait till December?
yes, you'll wait till we're done with the final capacity fee study.
And so I think whatever date the board picks for the effective date of the ordinance, the board should also give direction to the staff and make a decision regarding what has to happen by that date. Is it sufficient if the property owner submits an application for a connection permit by that date? Or does the does the property owner have to have signed an agreement for an installment payment policy? If the property owner isn't using the installment payment policy, do they have to deposit the fees by that date and be committed? That's a detail that isn't really addressed anywhere, and it's something that your board could give direction on.
Just off the top of my head, it seems like a signed agreement would be when the agreement is made.
But some people may not be using the installment payment policy, they may be paying in cash, so there wouldn't be an agreement. There would be an application for a connection permit.
I would assume that when they turn their application no later than April 30th, they would make the cash payment based off of the old capacity fee by April 30th.
But not if they're using the installment payment plan, they wouldn't make a cash payment.
If you're using the installment payment plan, the plan would be signed April 30th with the old capacity fee, which allows the 2 months to approve that capacity fee by June 30th.
But it should be written somewhere. We can't assume that people understand.
Well, when we compile the agreement, it'll be stated
be
what those capacity fees are.
And this is the direction that Mr. Battles said that we need to get along with
Yes.
any.
Right.
Yes.
So then if you're saying April 30th, if I decide, so you're saying, can you check? When would be the latest?
April 30th.
Which is also the last date that somebody who is applying for the payment plan can submit.
But we haven't proved that date.
Right.
Right, so
Right.
you're writing it down.
And April 30th
It's
is
not
the
yet
Saturday.
concrete.
So it would technically be April 29th because it's Saturday's April 30th.
Okay.
So if they were to come in on the 29th and want to do an installment payment plan, and we pick that date as good faith for them to go through the process, the regular board meeting is May 18th and June 15th.
Miss Ivy had a question.
Do we have to sign an agreement and have all that before we can connect?
Yes.
So I can't connect as soon as that lateral comes to my house?
No, if you're gonna pay cash, then what you do is you come in, turn in your plans of connection. We'd approve the plans, you make your payment, you can connect right there.
I think there's still some confusion about what the soonest date you can do that will be.
We're hoping no later than December 5th.
That's when the project is.
So if they come in 2 weeks and put your lateral in, you can't connect because there's nowhere to go with it. Like you can't use it because it's not.
I'm already made an appointment. Okay. So now I'm looking for December?
Possibly the latest.
At the latest.
So your appointment with your plumber to make your connection to the lateral, if it's installed, you can keep that appointment. Just make sure we have plans on what your lateral is gonna look like, and we can review those in advance.
But you can't abandon your septic tank until the line is 100% connected.
I'll run a hose over to Gary's house.
Or you'll be getting more outhouses.
Jose, when I used to work here, whenever there was an application, one of the employees would go, usually with me, out with a ruler and compass, and we would draw whatever, we would inspect everything that was open, but also draw a map on the certificate so that if ever there was a question for the homeowner or us of how that lateral ran, we could always flip the certificate over and there was the map of it.
We still do that.
We still do that.
Yes.
Okay,
We still do
You mean something like this?
just
There
like
you go.
that. Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Already did it.
Shows depths, it has to have depths where your cleanouts are located.
And
Perfect.
everything, got it, done it.
Well,
Okay.
if there's nothing else, then what we're looking for now.
I'll read the motion.
Okay,
So the
very
motion
good.
would be adopt resolution 2110, setting forth findings, approving preliminary environmental review form, and authorizing filing notice of exemption relating to capacity fees and setting the effective date of the new capacity charges for April 29th of 2022. Giving staff direction to accept applications no later than April 29th, 2022. And if someone's paying in cash, they would pay that amount on April 29th, 2022. If they're applying for the payment plan, they would apply no later than April 29th, 2022 as well.
Okay, Jose has read the motion. Is there someone that is wanting to make that?
I just got a one little question.
Yes.
That doesn't say anything about they can still apply for it afterwards, just not at the,
If a resident applies, after April 29th, 22, the new capacity fees that are adopted today will take effect.
right, we need to say that.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Deambra and a second by Director Redfern.
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Deambra and a second by Director Redfern to adopt resolution 21-10, setting forth findings approving preliminary environmental review form and authorizing filing notice of exemption relating to capacity fees with an effective date for the new capacity charges to begin May 1st, because the expiration for applications will be April 29th. And what was the other part about the new?
If you apply after the
No,
deadline,
after the deadline. It will be the
And
new
the
fee.
new rates will apply. Capacity.
We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redford,
Aye.
Director Deambra,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Van Pelt.
Yeah.
And is Director Beard on at all?
I do not see him.
Okay, motion passes. So April 29th, you're dead.
Good. I'll have to be in before then. I'll be in.
Okay, so now we are moving to 8B. And that will also have General Manager Costa.
so item 8B is just adopting the ordinance that will update, amending the sewer code to revise the capacity fees and the effective date of April 29th, 2022.
So essentially,
Are we
we're
saying May 1 for the effective
May-
date?
Date that they would take effect, May 1st, because that's the next business day. And also on the back, the ordinance date changes. Instead of 21st day of July, it's going to be 18th day of August for the ordinance to take effect. So the motion would be, if we're ready for a motion.
I think so. I think we discussed all the particulars the first half of this.
Okay, so we're adopt ordinance 02103, an ordinance of San Diego Community Services District amending the sewer service code to revise capacity fees with an agreed date of May 1st, 2022. Any applications after that would pay the new capacity fees. And also amending the ordinance to the pass and adopted date of 18th day of August, 2021.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Director Van Pelt makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Director Deambra has seconded the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Van Pelt and a second by Director Deambra to adopt ordinance O-21-03, an ordinance of the San Diego Community Services District amending the sewer service code to revise capacity fees with an effective date of May 1st, 2022, with the change of August 18th, 2021 is the adoption date. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redford.
Aye.
Director Deambra.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Van Pelt.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, very good, thank you. We will move to action item 8C, which is Horizon Drive Mainline Extension Project. And once again, our General Manager, Jose Acosta.
At this time, Rick, I think we appreciate you being here this evening. We're going to discuss our last item on the agenda. So your attendance is no longer required if you want to check off the meeting.
Okay, I'm signing off. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick.
Welcome.
Mr. Tuckfield, are you still on the line as well?
Yes, he is.
I am.
Okay, the only thing that I'm gonna mention, and I'll get to that point right away, so that way we can let you off the line as well, is discussing of the customer capacity fees. Staff and Clayton and legal and Wendy have been in constant communication, upgrading this. It's gonna require one more upgrade on the spreadsheet based off of the date of the new capacity fee. So we'll discuss that, finalize that. Our hope is to bring this to the September board meeting to present the customers of Horizon Drive with a semi-final fees that will be paid. We're hoping to be close to the final fees, but that's what we're gonna do. We'll bring it to September board meeting for discussion and board input at that time. And that's where we are with the customer capacity fees. Are there any questions on that right now or anything we want to ask Clayton of that while he's on the line?
I think we asked our questions earlier.
Mr. Waples? No. Okay, Clayton. So your excuse as well, if you'd like to head out for the evening. Again, thank you very much for coming this evening, checking in, answering the questions that the board had. They had some good questions last month, so want them to hear straight from the source. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Clayton. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so the first item on here is the loan update real quick. Funds have been deposited into a five-star account and all invoices and fees associated with the project will be paid out of that account. The first payment to SDI is shown to this month on the check register, which is included in your board packet. And that was for approximately $272,000. So that's progress payment number one that's been made to SDI. Construction updates. SDI has been working on the project daily. At this point, they have installed manhole Z1, which is the first manhole by Refugio Drive. And they constructed all the way from Refugio Drive all the way to the cul-de-sac. So the main line itself has been installed all along Horizon Drive. In the next couple of weeks, they'll be installing laterals to all the residents along Horizon Drive. And the hope is to, by the end of the month, start repaving the proportions of Horizon Drive where they have cut into the road and installed the main line, the manholes, and the laterals. So by the end of the month, we're hoping to have all laterals installed at the properties. We did go to properties, ask the residents where they'd like their lateral located. So they did communicate with the residents and work with them on that. We've worked with several of the residents, ensuring that the depths at their properties are going to be at adequate levels. So that way they don't have to put in a pump system or any other additional cost or equipment associated with their laterals. And once all the laterals are installed and they buttoned up with the paving along Horizon Drive, they'll start working down the easements and they're going to start at Highway 246 at San Jacoda at that manhole, making that connection and working their way north towards Horizon Drive. And that's the plan. That's right. So right now, just going to mention that staff and Mr. Kerr, our construction manager, have been out there daily collaborating. Mr. Kerr's been involved in all our meetings and on the email correspondences between SDI and the district. And so I just want to turn it over to him really quick in case he has any input or we have any questions of Mr. Kerr as well. He's in the audience.
Only just briefly, they have run into situations where they have poor concrete deliveries, like last night they were out there till 6:30, 7 o'clock. What they've been doing to try to maintain their budgets and manpower when they run into overtime like that, they go a short day on Friday or they take a Friday off. They've been absent a couple Fridays due to all company training. And there's another one coming up on August 27th where their annual training for their people are due. They're averaging between 5 and 6 men every day. Just seems like every day there's one guy has an appointment or another guy like sick or something. So it's 5 or 6, but it's fairly consistent. The superintendent had a couple family tragedies, an accident where he fell and hurt his ribs, and then he had family tragedy his father lives. So he was out a few days last week, but his men stepped in and they sent another man down to help out. There was a couple things that slipped up, they didn't water, and one of the residents was a little upset about some dust, but by and large, the number 2 guy stepped up and did a good job. So I'm happy with their performance, even with they hit some water along, right in front of here. And that slowed them down, and, but they came out almost within a day or two where they're supposed to be on the master schedule. By just putting their heads down and working it out, so they're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Kerr?
Thank you for being there so often like that. Appreciate that.
Okay.
So I'll continue on. There have been 2 change orders submitted and approved thus far. The first change order was in the amount of $15,500 for providing and installing 200 cubic yards of sand. The original estimates on the slurry were not accurate. So what we're doing to mitigate the higher cost of using slurry is putting a little extra sand over the top of the pipe to minimize the amount of slurry, to lower the amount of slurry that we have to install, which the cost difference is gonna save overall based off using sand versus slurry in that portion, those portions.
So did the engineer look at that to see that we don't have a problem with the sand migrating or?
That we did, we passed it through engineering, we got his feedback, and he had no issues or concerns with that. He says the sand, as long as they're compacting it properly, which they are, and the slurry on top should allow for proper settling, proper compaction of the pipe. The second change order was in the amount of $6,000.50, and that was for additional potholing along the required during the project to locate utilities. We anticipated only having to do 7 potholes based off of the bid documents that were compiled. They've already gotten up to 18 potholes. So we may have to do a few more along the easements as well. So the change orders aren't substantial at this time. I do want to make sure the board is aware that the slurry cost will be additional. And if that change order comes, I'll be presenting that to the board for discussion. Because that could be a little higher than these 2 original change orders.
And the difference in the pothole, is that just something that happens sometimes? How did so many get overlooked?
So I'm not sure how it got overlooked. I think what we were initially looking for was certain utilities and then take into account all the utilities as far as water, gas, and electrical. And I think we ran into a couple other utilities that were just in the area that we weren't anticipating running into.
Would that be like cable TV or?
Cable or gas, you know, and we don't know all the utilities until we USA them. And then they come out and mark them, and then we say.
But wouldn't they have done that
You would-
pre-construction?
You wouldn't have done that prior to bid though. You wouldn't have USA prior to bid. We can, the next time we do a project, keeping this in mind that we should probably do that as a district so that we have marks there. But your USA is only good for 30 days. You can continue renewing it, and then the construction contractor would have to come in and call in their own USA when they got here as well.
So, but I mean, the construction guy, when they came in, they didn't call in their USA to do the bid?
Well, they didn't call in their USA until they were awarded the bid. And when they were awarded the bid, they bid it with 7 potholes. Because that was what was in the bid documents. So he says, I want to bid what's in your documents, which is 7 potholes. Here's my price. We give him the project. Then he calls in his USA.
Who was responsible to come up with the 7? That wasn't us.
That was not us. It was the engineer who came up with that, with the bid documents.
Well, it seems to me that the engineer fell a little short on his job. That, I mean, how does that land on our responsibility when we paid somebody to compile that information?
As far as, well, the engineer.
Because now the district's paying for it. Their mistake is the way I see it.
That Cannon?
Yeah, and the district engineer is a district employee because he's contracted through the district. So, yes, it was an oversight, and yes, it is a mistake on their behalf. And he will make sure that we correct it the next time. Like I say, next time we take the.
Why don't we ask him now?
He's not.
I mean, we pay for accurate information, and he is responsible as a professional. I don't know anybody who's more accurate of information than engineers. And if he made a mistake, I would like to see if we could get compensated for that mistake. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yes, Mr. Kerr.
He would have had to do a USA prior to the design and during design. He picked up his information off the record plans that were available. If he had done that USA and they had marked it on the streets and provided the contractor with the quantities, you would pay the same amount that you're paying now because they did quantity that was bid per unit price. So it's not a change order where you're being gouged, you're paying X number of dollars. Their price per bottle is extremely reasonable. So unless it's in your engineering contract that they required to USA during their design, it's really not a mistake. He pulled off as much information as he could off existing utility plans. And they're showing on the documents, the 7 are on the plans, gas plans and stuff. So I, as a mistake, unless he was required to do USA during his design, he did the best he could off record documents. So it's very unlikely that it's a serious enough mistake that he's going to reimburse. I mean, we can try.
So you, most of the time, they don't pull USA, you're saying? It's
Most of the time, they don't USA during design. USA was created so you don't dig into the
Right.
gas line
I
and blow
understand.
up. So it's only, USA won't come out for every project that's designed. They don't charge for coming out.
right.
Pardon?
Service. I understand, it's a free service, but I use them all the
Come
time.
out to free checks and then come out and do it again because the contract on his watch. So I think that's probably not a good path to take. I hate extras, but I don't think that's an error by the engineer. That would be compensable.
Thank you, Dave, for stepping in and clarifying that as well.
Yes, thank you.
Me
So,
also.
but again, like I said, it's a learning. Next time during design, we can require a USA prior to design. Again, it's just extra work. We're calling them out. It is a free service. Well, we do pay for that service on an annual basis as well, so monthly basis. So I'll move on to my staff report. Staff has received several calls from the customers who have praised the workmanship, also had concerns regarding some of the areas of the workmanship. SDI has been very diligent to address those concerns. Everyone on the Horizon Drive has direct access to the project manager of SCI, so they have the ability to call him and voice their concerns. They have direct access to my line, Wendy's line, Craig and David as well are out there. So we're doing our best to address all concerns, and we continually encourage the community to call us if there's any issues or concerns. We've also received approximately 7 inquiries to make the connection as soon as the project's completed or within a short amount of time after the project is completed. So we're looking at about 7 connections.
Yay.
And what we did do, and I mentioned at last month's meeting regarding the capacity fee study, is we went back and we reassessed the properties that actually benefit from this. And there were some properties to the west or to the east that are empty lots right now, vacant lots, but they could benefit once they connected. And that came into play because the owner of one of the properties who's leasing that property for staging area to SCI, as soon as he found out we're doing this, hey, I want to connect. I'm looking to develop this someday, so I want to make that connection. So we included those 3 properties as well. So we increased the amount of properties that could benefit from this, which in addition, which will help the customers that were the original 20 lower that cost as well.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think we say we build a sewer, they will come. So that's what we're hoping.
Question for you.
Yes.
It's highly promoted by the county and the state, secondary units. They're very supportive of that. So 1 acre parcels are prime. You build a secondary unit, what is there another charge for us? What do we do? Do they get that hooked up to the main? what is the policy? I don't know what that is.
Please.
If they're building a brand new unit under 800 square feet, they have to pay capacity fees. If for an ADU and it's based on how many fixtures they have, and each fixture is given a number by the California Plumbing Code.
Fixtures. I don't-
Fixtures like a toilet. So a
Oh,
toilet
okay.
is worth
Got it.
3, a shower
Yeah, got
is worth 2.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So then you add those up, they have up to 15 for the 74% of the actual capacity fee. So an ADU, a brand new constructed ADU under 800 square feet or less is 74% of our capacity fee. If it's over 800 square feet, it gets the full capacity fee. If it's a conversion, then it gets free.
Conversion, meaning if it's attached to
Yeah,
the.
so if you convert
original.
your garage, or if you go to the county and say, I want to build a pool cabana, and you convert that pool cabana, then it's a conversion, so there's no capacity.
So the capacity fee, the one-time charge, but there is no monthly fee. Is that correct?
No, you will have a capacity fee based on whether it's an ADU or a second unit.
I understand, but what about, there's not a monthly fee?
Yes, there is.
There is an additional monthly fee
Yes.
too. Okay, okay.
Now, does the district go and look and see how many connections on a large property there might be? Or do we
If
just,
they're submitting plans to build an ADU, we will review the plans and confirm that.
right, but let's say they have several RVs and they're all connected.
That would be determined if and when we do smoke testing. And if somebody calls and complains, let's say somebody has 3 trailers connected to their sewer, then we would go and look, and if they were connected, then we would send them a letter.
So we rely on observations from the community, or we drive by and see it. We don't drive around looking for those illegal connections.
How often have you guys smoked?
We haven't smoked in a while. I've been here a year and we haven't smoked.
It's probably been, well, I think they've done it once since I've been here.
It has not happened since I've been on the
Yeah,
board.
And I want to say that we never did a complete smoking when I worked here, never,
And it should be getting done.
right? Because just my travels walking the dogs, we have several of them in town.
My feeling is, as we are raising this capacity fee, that's a good time to do it before we raise the fees, because it's not fair.
What gets my chance?
Right. Yes, Ms. Aggie.
I think that on Horizon Drive, we already have pool houses and granny places that's been built. And we also have trailers and things like that brought in on property that people are living in. So when you're doing this, you should ask to be really prudent for your services. I think that there should be an inspection, and you should go down, and if this house is going to be connected, then you asked about the pool house, and you asked about the granny building and all of that, and get them connected at the same time, and there's your fees. And there's already trailers, there's already there. I've reported this, so you've already got extra to come to you just off of Horizon Drive with those units.
I think what we can do is ask when the customers on Horizon Drive want to connect and they bring in their applications, that they also submit any plans of all connections or fixtures that are currently on the property as well.
Right, you just need to cover yourself on that.
Yes, Gary.
So if I want to put an RV clean out attached to my lateral, do I have to pay extra? Do I have to pay a capacity fee? Do I have to pay a monthly?
Is it, if it's in the original plans, no, I believe that you would pay the original capacity fee.
And
And
if I want to add, what you're saying, an additional unit,
then you would have to pay the capacity.
even if it's in the original plans?
Well, if it's not built yet, then it's not.
But you wouldn't want to leave the RV parked over the cleanout with a pipe connected to it, with electricity running into it,
They connect it.
because then that becomes living quarters. You can empty out your tank into it,
Right.
but it shouldn't stay connected.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, that concludes the Horizon Drive updates. If I have any questions from the board or from the public.
Karen has another one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My question. So you're expecting the project to be done on the 5th of December?
Yes.
But I need to sign up before I can program.
Correct.
And whether I
And pay
do
your
installment, it takes 2 months. If I do a check, it's immediate.
Yes.
Correct.
So if I come in on January 15th with a check, January 16th, I can have my excavation company.
As long as we have the plans. And
Okay.
we go up, yes, we go up doing this.
And how long do you need to have the plans to approve them?
I would say at least a week prior to,
Okay.
because it would take me 4 days staff to go out there and spend and do this.
Okay, it's really tough to find people to come out and even give us an estimate.
That's what I've been hearing from everyone right now.
When I used to work here, you can't cover your connection until the district's inspected, because one of the problems the district has is water infiltration, and that's by connections that aren't quite made properly. So the district likes to look at and make sure everything's nice and tight, so that we're not getting a bunch of groundwater at the same time that never stops flowing into the system, because we all pay for it.
Yeah.
So I think that's still current, isn't
It's
it?
still correct. So when I say a week, we want to review the plans, knowing what your plans are, so that we can plan accordingly of what we're going to be looking for when we go out there while you're doing your construction.
So my new guy that I'm hiring makes all my trenches, lays the pipe, gets ready to cut the inlet and hook up to it. You have to inspect it before you put the inlet
Yeah.
We have to be present.
Yeah.
During that connection.
during that connection. And then after that, he can go and destroy the old septic system and all that.
That's between you and the county at that point, on how you handle that. But yes, you should be able to go and abandon your own septic tank.
And at that time, when he's out there, that's when he takes the sewer permit and he draws a little map on back.
Gotcha.
And we usually ask for 24 hours advance.
To be there for that.
You're probably gonna get a lot more than that because, like I said, it's been really tough to get people out there.
And if
We
you-
have, go ahead.
And the estimates are much higher. What It's much higher than I expected.
And if you use the 3 local contractors that we send out information for, they know our rules and regulations.
Yeah.
So,
They're not answering their phones.
um,
Actually, Ben Johnson
mhm,
and Barney and Gabe. So I've got 2 of them. You guys know Ron Stevens? Ron Stevens?
I've heard of him, yeah.
Okay. But I'm trying to get Gary Lytle and Ron Stevens.
Mhm.
I may end up only with 2 bids.
Does Coast do that? Coast Plumbing?
It has to be a sewer, somebody that can dig. And I don't know. if plumbing
Excavator.
company
Yeah, that's more like
Can
plumbing.
dig, yeah.
It is, but they replaced the line to my son's septic, and the owner was very interested in how he got in on this work. So I didn't know if
You
they
can tell.
approved, yeah.
And
So if you guys are bringing the laterals into each property, which they started today, digging one to one property, and that's a really big ditch. So does all of that have to stay open until we get connected and you inspect it?
No, so what we're putting in is we've inspected it, we're accepting that as our project, that's our site. What we need to inspect is everything that you connect beyond that point to your house. So your ditch hopefully won't be that wide because it's so deep in this area. It might be deep in some areas, but that's the only part that has to be exposed is from that point right now to your house.
But it's gotta be exposed for a long period of time.
No. Once you make the connections and we inspect it, which, like we said, you give us 24-hour notice, it says, I put in my line, ready to make my connection. We can go out there and say, make your connection, and you can backfill.
I'm hearing a different question though. Are you saying, will that be open where you've done your work? I'm understanding that that's closed.
Yeah, no, ours is gonna be secured and closed as soon as it's installed. So up to the property line, that's all gonna be covered back up. And
I know, but you said I've already made my appointment for my guy to be there because they were telling me that by September 1st, my lateral will be there. So I had an appointment for my guy to come, okay, you put this in to connect them. But I really can't do that until December 5th or.
until the project is completed, we've tested the line and we've accepted the line, correct? And the latest that would be December.
So I can't keep that appointment.
No, you may want to reconsider that.
You would want to, yeah.
Or we can inspect what you have up until that point. So if you came in next week, yes, sir.
I'm just gonna say, we did this once with the district and they started using the lateral before the sewer line was ready. And when they went to make the connection, they opened that up. You had all that effluent that had been stored in the lines, all of a sudden come gushing out. It was not a good thing.
So yes, you may want to reconsider that appointment site because we want to make sure we do the connection at that time that we inspect. And it's ready to be sent down the line.
Do I have a long face?
You do.
You do.
Do I have a long sad face?
You do.
I'm sorry.
Well, I hope that it's done by Christmas.
It will be done by Christmas.
It's only like,
I
maybe
know.
40 to 60 days, not 40 to 60 years.
And that's their like very last date. They have no intention of taking it that long. They wanted to be done, by,
Well, yes, we're hoping.
Yeah.
Maybe end of September, but I can't throw that date out there because if something happens. Yes.
Is SCI anything person to do the lateral?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Is SCI an approved contractor to do my lateral?
They can be approved. I will tell you this, that you're probably gonna pay more through SCI than other companies because they are a larger firm. They do charge more.
Yeah.
So, but you can always approach them if they're one.
They approached me.
Okay. So you can get a quote from them.
Yeah, okay.
that's funny because when we were at the meeting, they said, no, we can't do that.
Well, I think what they're saying is that they don't want to do small projects.
No, right. Say they're foreman in San Luis Obispo, actually do weekend jobs. I don't know if you work under SCI's or his own license.
That's what you would want to.
I know, I need to approach that. The lateral that they're putting in now only goes 2 feet beyond the street.
Mhm.
Is there any way to get that further?
No, because that was what's within the spec and we're
Okay.
approaching the project.
Because I was asked that. Yeah.
Cheer up, Miss Ivy. It might even be by Thanksgiving.
That'd be nice. I was thinking September, but
Might be,
It might be,
it might be.
They're
quick.
moving quick.
Moving quick. And
Yeah.
based off the discussions that we have weekly.
so they're gonna be at my property with that lateral probably tomorrow.
There's nowhere for it to go.
So right now, we still have to test it. Once it's installed at 246, we have to test that whole line,
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah, I know, I just didn't realize.
I have one other.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And SCI is doing a very nice job.
Thank you.
They're very respectful of us. I talk to them, not every day. Someone else does talk to them every day. But they're all very congenial, explaining things. So far, they've been great.
Yeah, I find them very courteous and professional and cooperative.
Excellent.
I told him today on my monthly meeting, I dealt with a lot of contractors. And, you catch the ones that have their bad days and you get a lot of complaints on them. So far, they're very diligent on responding to any concerns or questions. So we're happy with that. Last thing I want to mention about Horizon Drive, there are no more comments, is there's an article in the San Ynez Sun, or Star. The Sun is a star. The San Ynez Star, regarding the, project. And there's a picture with a few of the board members and Mrs. Ivy on there as well.
With a big smile.
Have any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I think we covered it. Anything, Mr. Van Pelt?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, I see no informational items listed here. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Oh, Director Van Pelt has made a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
second it.
There's a second. So we shall adjourn the meeting of the Santee Community Services regular meeting at 7:15.
We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redford,
Aye.
Director Beard, Director Deanna.
Thank you very much. For that, you get a no. Bye.
Director Jones. Aye. And Director Van Pelt,
Aye.
and Director Beard never,
No, I never saw him.
okay.
He was a smart.
Mrs. Ivy, thank you for more
Yes,
than
thank you.
anything, your patience over time. Okay, thank you very much. You endured.
What time is it in Germany?
It's 4:15 in the morning.
Find a Starbucks, buddy. Find yourself a Starbucks.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.